Please listen carefully.
Hey everyone, I'm really excited to be here. This is my first time at CityWorks Expo, and all of the different ideas and connections I'm hearing are really getting me going, and I want to make those connections in my presentation. Hopefully I won't get too far off track. Well, as you heard, let's get this clicker going. As you heard, I work with the Participatory Budgeting Project. I've been doing community organizing, building campaigns, building organizations, and building movements for social, racial, economic, and environmental justice for the past 2 decades. Right now, I'm really excited to share some insights that we've gained from a process called participatory budgeting, which I've found to be a really powerful generator for community capacity and something that builds leaders. So a little bit about the organization with whom I work. The Participatory Budgeting Project was founded in 2009. We have been working around the country and have inspired, work with, and built relationships with almost every participatory budgeting process that's happening right now in North America. We have staff all over the country, from Brooklyn to Chicago to Oakland to me. I'm based in Greensboro, North Carolina. And we're really passionate about budgeting. We're passionate primarily about empowering people to make decisions with public funds. We provide technical assistance. We are supporting folks who are advocating and working to win participatory budgeting processes. We also support implementers of participatory budgeting. We also have a participation lab, and that's where we innovate, research, and design facilitative and digital tools to support full participation and access. In addition to that, we have a network of practitioners where we can learn together and grow participatory budgeting processes. So basically what we've done is, I'm sure you all are aware of the challenges facing democratic processes today, right? We know what it's like to sit in meetings where no one's talking or when one person's talking way too much. We know the problems that our communities are facing, and we know the challenges that we're presented with, whether we're a community member or in local government. So many presenters today have already really outlined those challenges well. At Participatory Budgeting Project, we have dug into those challenges, and folks who are working with participatory budgeting, whether they're part of our organization or part of the thousands of people around the world, are really asking the question, what if we redesign democratic practice? If you're a city planner or if you've ever been exposed, this is the Arnstein ladder of participation, and something that folks realize is that even among all of these conventional practices of input, many of them, while they facilitate input, create barriers to actual involvement in decision making. Whether it is a hearing and a deputation, whether it's an online game that a city puts up to learn and give input, whether it's even a town hall or a focus group or a civic board or a community board. Input is given, it's taken back, and then folks use that input to a greater or lesser degree to formulate the actual decision. So what we do is we look at how can we support real participation, not just in the decisions, but in actually framing the questions that we're deciding on. So what we do is participatory budgeting. It took me about 3 months to get that to roll off the tongue. And it's a democratic process where people are directly deciding how to use public funds, but even further than that, they're developing the ideas and the concepts from submission to implementation readiness in order to frame the questions and the choices that folks get a chance to be involved in. So let me explain. It's a really simple process in and of itself. It's something that I use with my kids when we're engaging the hard decision of what to watch, especially now that the internet provides us infinite possibilities to argue about what we're going to watch, whether it's YouTube or their favorite YouTuber or a video on Netflix or a movie or whatever. So it's scalable. It can be used in small communities, institutions, or organizations. It can be used in cities and large communities, and it is adaptable to the needs of the different resources which it would be used to allocate. Whenever we go to support a community to implement PB, we work with them to design the process first, and then we go into the 4 steps: idea collection, proposal development, voting, and implementation. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about those before I dig into the next, to talking about what it does to the communities who have a chance to participate. When we do idea collection, we do more than just hold convenings, although that's part of it. A lot of cities already have input processes when there's a big project happening. A lot of communities already have that aspect. But what we found over time is that if you just hold a meeting in one place or even in multiple places across the city and ask people to come to it, well, they're going to a new thing that they're not even sure if it's important or what kind of impact it will have on their lives. So when we do idea collection, we convene assemblies where communities can brainstorm together. We also go out to the community where people already are. So we join up with major community events. We go to community-based organizations. We go to places of worship, to schools, to places where people already are, where connections already exist. And then we enter those spaces and convene brainstorming about the priorities of the community. We then take all those ideas that are collected in that process and move them to the proposal development process, where volunteers act as change agents, and they work in depth with the stakeholders around the public funds that are being allocated to take the ideas from concept to implementation readiness. This is really important, and to me, Maureen was talking about the magic of food. This is the magic of participatory budgeting, because what happens in that process is people from the community are able to be experts and on equal footing with those who are typically considered to be experts, so that their knowledge of community needs is on equal footing with the feasibility and technical requirements of the projects themselves. It's really exciting, and so much comes out of that. And then when we move to the voting process, folks aren't just voting up or down, yes or no, on choices that have already been framed for them. They're voting on choices that have been framed by their neighbors, by themselves, through a process of true collaboration. So, and in addition to that, they're voting on an array of choices, so that in most cases, anyone who votes in the process is able to see a result that reflects some of their community priorities. And finally, implementation. And this may seem really simple, and it's hard to catch how important this is. But when a local government or an institution decides and commits to a participatory budgeting process, they allocate funds at the beginning of the process, right? They're not telling the community, you organize, you make a plan, and you convince us, and then maybe we'll fund it. What they're saying is, we believe in this community's ability to identify and articulate its own needs, and we commit the funding at the beginning of the process, and we commit it year over year, so that there's a chance to refine and improve the process over time. That is an essential piece of building trust. And right now, trust is urgently needed. In addition to those 4 basic aspects, when we support communities to implement participatory budgeting, we actually support them to integrate new processes for access and equity. You've heard a lot today about inequity, and that's something that when we're making decisions together as communities, inequity is always there. We're living with the physical manifestations of histories of inequity in our communities. We bring those things with us in our conversations, and they're very difficult. That's when conflict emerges. Now, I work with a belief that was given to me by a college classmate of mine who is a conflict and resolution specialist. And the way she frames it is that peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is having the resources and the ability to effectively engage in conflict. So when we work with folks who are implementing participatory budgeting, we work with actual tools, with trainings and skill building to give community members and local governments the ability to assess, to talk about, and to deal with the reality of inequity that we live with today. That's really important and powerful. And the result is broad and active participation. People see that it's meaningful, that they're working with meaningful amounts of money. They have access and they learn about where and when and how things are going to happen. The process is transparent. And this gives them motivation to actually be involved. Kind of to sum this up in a word, this is a community-centered process rather than an expert-centered process. And the picture on, I don't know, this is right, your left. You see members of the community in a participatory budgeting expo where they're talking about the projects that they've developed, why they're important, and why someone might want to vote for them. And everyone in the room is on equal footing to share ideas and to understand and think about and to deliberate on what they want to do with their vote, how they want to allocate public funds. This is in contrast to what you're probably familiar with, which is standard setup for a community hearing or a city council meeting or a board of commissioners meeting where the people are in the back and they've got to wait for their turn to talk for a few minutes about really urgent and critical issues facing their communities, which are then left to the experts to solve. Rose was a leader with Sister Soul, which is an organization in Harlem, New York City. They worked to advocate and to plan a project that would be a community garden in their neighborhood. So this, again, harks back to Maureen's conversation about the need for food and real food options in communities. They were able to learn how to navigate the system, but not only that, they added to the understanding of the city as to why this was important and that there was a base of residents willing to put in effort to make it happen. So when the capacity that was generated was not just with Rose and the other community members like herself who learned how to navigate the system by acting as change agents, it also was increased on the side of the city when they were able to learn more clearly what the priorities of the community were and to understand how to make that happen within their own existing processes. So one of the things we've learned is that when this engagement is increased through participatory budgeting, not only is it folks moving through this process getting a chance to engage in making decisions, but that this reflects on their interest and willingness to be involved in other forms of civic engagement. Even more exciting than that is that you'll see the different level of engagement determines the extent of the change. So the blue bars are folks who voted only. The red bars are people who voted but had other kinds of involvement. The green bars are folks who worked as change agents to develop the ideas from concept to implementation, which is a really intensive process that volunteers engage in with the communities in which they work. Those folks had the greatest impact in their experience of being involved. And that's huge, because what we're seeing here is we're actually building leaders here, right? These people are transformed through the process, and the community is transformed as well. The essence of this all is that we're building relationships. It's impossible to solve the complex, multifaceted, multi-generational issues that our communities face today. And in fact, we're facing issues that have never been faced before. Because when we take the legacy of inequity and add to it the complexity of how we relate to one another and the way our relationships are impacted by digital media and digital forms of communication, and then put that all under the specter of climate change, we're facing problems that we've never faced before. So in order to solve those problems, we need new ideas. And to have new ideas, we need new leaders and more voices in the room. So in response to some of the challenges in terms of of the need for equity and the importance of equity, we're finding some tools that actually help to increase the equitability of our decision-making process, and that can be scaled from large to small in our communities. Again, what we see is resilience. We see the development of leadership and the presence of new voices in the process. And again, I just want to emphasize, we're not just talking about marginalized communities having new skills in leadership, although that's a really critical piece of this. We're talking about entire communities building capacity together. The engagement and the learning that occurs is two-way. Those who are already involved in government learn more about their communities. They learn creative ways of solving problems. And those who are supported to participate in the process build relationships, gain social capital, and bring knowledge of how the existing system works back to their communities, so that this two-way relationship builds over time. The cumulative capacity of the community to respond as a result of this process is greatly increased. This is happening all over the United States, in fact, all over North America and the world. We've had the opportunity over almost the past 10 years to support the engagement of over 300,000 people in 22 cities. And we're really excited because we see that the impacts of increasing capacity multiply even once we've left and are no longer working with folks. And again, like I said, we're really passionate about the potential for this tool in our communities. We've got a number of resources on the internet. These are free tools on our website, participatorybudgeting.org. We support a network, like I said, of practitioners who are sharing insights and learning how to make this tool better and be better users of this tool in context. And if you have any questions, I'd love to talk more about this. Thank you so much.